Hello.
Hello. Thank you for making the time to connect today.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
pleasure.
Thought we could also use the time when my littlest one is napping. We have no idea how long she'll nap for.
How
Uh,
old is she?
she's nearly 4 months. Yeah,
Okay, so still early days, and every moment of quiet is a blessing, right?
absolutely. Yeah. Um, and she will actually be joining us at the gathering.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to have children around. It
Mm,
really changes the flavor
mm,
of an event.
mm. Yeah. At first, that's a really, yeah. We feel that it's a welcoming space for it. And I was really inspired by there's a friend of mine called Nina Gualinga, and she's from the Quechua people in Ecuador. And she's based between Sweden and Ecuador. And I sat at one of her panel discussions in the Climate Week in Sweden a few years ago. And her son Tiam was running around on stage. So she's doing this like public speech, and it's being live streamed, and we've got lots of different people in the room, and her son, who's full of energy, who grew up in the Amazon and also in Sweden, was just running around. And at some point she stopped and she just looked out at the crowd and she said, this is how we do it. This is how we actually do it in Ecuador. The children are part of these discussions of important meetings, because a lot of the time, it's actually the discussion for their future, and they might not be cognitively understanding every part, but they're there in the field, in the energy of kind of that is important. And so it makes you kind of, I mean, having children yourself, reconsider what a disruption is, or what a loud noise is, or what like a contribution to the conversation is. Because often children will just say something at the most perfect moment, right? They might actually interject and stop a whole conversation, and everyone stops and they're like, huh, yeah.
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 Uh, yeah, and I think also when the children are generally included, I think they're actually much better also at being part of the space, and they can kind of, oh, everybody's quiet, maybe I'll be quiet too, you know. It's like,
Mm.
okay, they can't maybe hold it in for half an hour, but they can definitely hold it in for a few minutes.
They can.
So they learn how to weave themselves as well. And also, I really think the key thing there is you need a group of kids,
Yeah.
right? Because I can guarantee you, if there were 10 other kids, he wouldn't be running around the stage because that would be really boring. He'd
Mm.
be somewhere else playing. You will have the swarm of the kids running through once in a while, but in general, they take care of themselves really well, right?
Absolutely. And that's really one of the reasons why I'm so keen to join this year. And it has been a consideration, right? We have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. She's 3 months. She'll be 4 months at the time of the gathering. And we had to consider that as a family. Like it's not an easy thing to mobilize and to, change a whole routine and break out of that comfort zone, so to speak. But we also want to show that as a template, that families can make it, or whatever constellation you are really. It isn't only for one type of person. There should be some values and things that we're all joining for, that bring us, that spark that curiosity in the first place, that golden thread that runs there. But at the same time, I think it's really important to show examples of different constellations that can join. So we're coming over from East Germany. We're driving from Berlin to East Germany for a few weeks to be with family, and then we'll come over from there. And yeah, hoping to also join up with other families if they have children as well. We can also then try and arrange some local childcare as well. That mostly it'll be parents and families taking care, but often good to have other child carers or caretakers there as well, just to be able to hold the space.
I mean, we can publish this conversation, but let's definitely put that word out there as well.
Mm,
This is a family-friendly event. We should maybe even have a page on the website.
I think
I,
so.
I hesitate to put this in until there's some parents at the core, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't take responsibility for
Yeah.
organizing a child-friendly space. But if there is a core of parents, then it works out.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently in conversation with at least another three families about them potentially coming. Kids at different ages. It's a lot easier then to just pull together. So yeah, we don't have anything concrete yet. But I think in any case, just maybe bringing it out on the website with a line or two. Because at least from our end, there's two kids committed, and that might draw in other families, that alone. So
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you have even half a dozen, it already becomes the momentum becomes the self-management of kids. I don't have children ourselves for life, and it's the 21st century reasons, but I got to go. It's already, I think, almost not 20, 17 years ago or something. I went with a friend who was separated and her two daughters, who were, I think, 5 and 3 at the time, to
mm,
the eclipse in Australia. So a big psychedelic trance. So I got to play uncle. And it
cool.
was amazing. The image that stays with me for life was it's a festival, so there is a big kids area. And in the morning, we would go and take the kids to the kids area. And as soon as they saw it, it wasn't like not even at the gate. As soon as they saw it, they broke out running and it was like, bye, see ya, just completely, we don't need you at all. And then you see the kids playing together and it's just built in. If you think about it, it's obvious, but when you see it, it's so amazing, this pyramid of learning, right? Where the little bit older kid helps the little bit younger kid and so forth down the line, right? It's just this pyramid of and it's so beautiful and it's obvious. And if you think about it, right, this is one of the I spent if when we're thinking about having children, I spent a few years reading about the learning education system and all of that, its craziness and the alternatives. And if you think about it, the way we've structured it, separating people by age,
Mm,
pathological, right? Real life never works that way. And it breaks that pyramid of care, which naturally develops around children. It's very interesting. It leads to bullying because usually bullying, I mean, of course, there's pathologies, but in general, bullying doesn't happen when you have age differences
mm,
because you would really, to beat up a smaller kid, you really have to be crazy. When it's similar age, competition naturally breaks out because we're at a similar level. It's
interesting.
an interesting thing.
Mm,
Uh, so yeah, really
cool.
excited.
And so and we're better than within, a forested area outside of Prague, right? We're also putting kids into an environment which is like a playground anyway, right? There might
Yeah,
not be,
yeah. It,
the toys and the tools and things, but they've also just got nature's playground. And we saw this recently on a trip. We came back from Tunisia, which is where we spend part of our lives. And we thought, okay, whenever you do and you leave Western Europe, you pack like which electronic toys do we need, which wooden toys, we ended up just clearing our minds, taking a couple of the essential ones and going out on our trip where we stayed in an eco village called Samana Valley, which is a friend of ours has been building for 2 years. And really, Noor, our 2-year-old, didn't need anything. She had some crayons and she found shells and other things of nature, and we had some watercolors, and we're making just earth paintings, from a few basic things. And we had pots and things you can make music from, and really those toys become kind of irrelevant. Everything can become a toy, and actually kids in nature use their imagination a lot more. So that's what we're so excited about as well. I feel more relaxed. She feels more relaxed. The whole family does really when we're just somewhere
and
where we can
and
breathe.
I think something that I mean, it will take hundreds of years for us to fully study this, but when you are in nature, much more of the world is a playground and it is toys, right? Like I'm walking through the forest, I can pick up a stick, smash it against a thing,
Yeah.
or I can poke it this, I can this. If you do this around the house, pick up random objects and use them in random ways. That's not what they're for, and you're not allowed, right? So that's why you need to have more and more toys because you can't, as a child, interact with large parts of the world because it's not for you.
Oh yeah.
In nature, in the forest, it's like, yeah, pick up the stick, chew on it, whatever, right? It's okay.
Freedom. Yeah.
If you pick up a random object in the house and start chewing on it, no, no. Good for your immune system, by the way. Chew on random things a little bit.
Mhm.
Uh, so, yeah, it's one of my questions that I like to ask people when I meet new people. My one of my new favorite icebreaker opening questions is ask people what their connection to nature was as a child.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting. We live in times where it's dramatically different. I've talked to people who like, yeah, I grew up in the village, my backyard opened onto the forest. We would run out and not come back until it was dark.
Mhm.
To people, I grew up in Singapore, 30th floor apartment.
Yeah.
I got to go to the park once a week with my parents if I was lucky,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I think we've barely started thinking of what impact on people's psychology that has.
Mhm. And what was your relationship to nature growing up?
So I was in the middle. I grew up in Warsaw in
Mhm.
a modern Soviet apartment block in the 70s, so there was not much nature around, but I could go outside. But then in the summers, my parents parked me off with my grandmother, and we went to this distant family in the Polish mountains in the south. And
Mhm.
there it was great because you could go out, and there it's a small village, just become quite touristy now. Uh, and they were up a street and there were only 4 or 5 houses
Mhm.
above, and then it opened into a national park.
Wow.
So every day with my grandmother we would go out, we would walking in the hills and so on and so forth. And a whole bunch of years later I was living in Japan, and it was when I first escaped the city, and we lived there. It was 15-20 minutes walk from a forest.
Gorgeous.
uh, And I realized, my God, this is my biggest luxury in life, that I can walk out from my front door and on my own 2 legs be in a forest. And it only took me 15 or 20 years after that to realize, wait, this was my childhood. Those summers with my grandmother, that's when I first experienced this, walking out the front door and walking into a forest.
Mm.
So yeah, I think those times with my grandmother, she really planted love for nature in me.
Mm. So beautiful. Yeah, it's nice how it just comes full circle like that. At some point, you realize the space where you feel the most relaxed, most likely is a place that had a very strong impact on you during childhood. And I feel that now we are for now in Berlin, and
Which is beautifully green and has so many amazing places.
especially this time of year, and I don't want to take that for granted because you can always find your piece of nature somewhere. You can find a moment to kind of to go into that rest place, but I think in the city when there's so many people around, everyone on their busy agendas, lots of things going on collectively. Anyway, stress levels in
I lived in
Germany.
Tokyo for 8 years. Every time I go to Berlin, I'm like, wow, it's so chilled out.
Wow,
But of
really?
course, yeah, it's such a relaxed, laid back city. It's definitely, I think it's one of the most human, larger cities in Europe.
Mm,
It's interesting. I have a friend who's lived for I think almost 10 years in Berlin now, but then he was in London before that.
mm,
And I also lived in London, and we compared it, and he says he summarized it in a really nice way.
mm.
He says in London, you really feel like you're working for the city.
Hmm.
In Berlin, you feel like the city is working for you.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. But of course, it is a big city. And of course, I only go in the summer. I have a joke with my Berliner friends that, like, Berlin, it's so wonderful. You only come in July and August. And I'm like, why would you go any other month?
Everything seems better, I think, yeah, when it's bathed in green from the trees and blue skies and that. But for sure, it's Berlin still holds that possibility that you can be who you want to be. I think that's something very special about this city. However, that is being tested right now more than ever in like the current time that we're in. Germany is going through a huge shift, and one that, historically we'd look at, we need to be really, really, really careful of. And I just wanted to connect that to why at Planetir we also want to introduce in our camp this year the possibility for people who are experiencing burnout and a lot of fatigue and a lot of stress in relation to the occupation of Palestine, as something that there's lots of people protesting, there's lots of police brutality that is cracking down protests. And so online and offline, for people that are feeling really fatigued and stressed and just need a place that's secure to come and just be held and just to rest, that's something that we also want to show and reflect in our camp, and just name it, just name that experience of how you feel. Because in a time where it's so difficult to get like sources of truth, people feel collectively gaslit, people feel that they're taking sides, there's so much kind of angst. Yeah, a place where people can just also come and be recognized and be acknowledged. So that's one of the things where I'm noticing here in this environment, there's a lot of tension. And in the same way that we see our children like decompress when they go into nature, so we do as adults as well. Sometimes we just need a nudge, we just need a push and say, hey, bookmark this weekend, and we'll be there to do what we can. Now, we can't change the world by one gathering alone in that way, but at least it's an opportunity to recharge the batteries.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sum total of all of the gatherings and all of the interactions that is the world. I
Mm.
would say connecting with that in the coherence camp, what I really want to give people is a sense of hope.
Mm.
This is something that I was traveling in the US and Canada, meeting with some high school friends who are highly educated, quite successful in their careers, but also pretty much plugged into the usual mainstream dialogue.
Mm.
And when I talk with people like this, I appreciate again how different my or our worldview is. Where, okay, we see everything that's wrong, but we also see a huge amount of solutions,
Mm.
of alternatives, of potential, as well as of projects that are working to manifest that potential. And as I mentioned, no, it was the other call I mentioned. My wife is working on a project to build 1,000 forest sanctuaries protected for 1,000 years.
Right.
Right? It's a huge vision, and there is so many people with huge visions and working to realize them.
Mm.
This it's such a privilege to be able to live with a sense of hope when so many don't have others.
Absolutely. And that's the driving force. That's the light that doesn't go out, right? When you can keep hope, then you can roll through the fluctuations of having a lot of energy, being a lot in the yang versus a lot in the yin, and just being able to kind of fluctuate. That hope is the thing that kind of sustains that, I think. So I would love to imagine a reality where both coexist, where we can, with all the camps, come together and actually even be able to visit those different stations where it's like, now I really need to decompress. Now I do feel like I need to be held, versus now I feel so inspired. I also really want to step out, and I'm open to new perspectives, and I think that's what I sense is a real opportunity for this year at the gathering as well, is to kind of come as you are, go into deep rest and recharge, but also be inspired at the same time. They can both coexist, I think.
Definitely. And this is why I really love this open co-created format
Mm.
of the gathering, because you can have all of those things, and it also creates the opportunity and very much the invitation of, for anybody that comes and they say, well, there is this other kind of space of talking about, I don't know, spirituality or this or that, or just being silent together, that's not there, I'm going to bring it in.
Yeah. Mm.
Right? And that's why always with the, or usually with the program, yes, we bring a bunch of things, a bunch of ideas, but then things emerge.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. I don't know if you ever heard me. I have a really great story about the closing ceremony.
Mm.
The opening closing ceremony at last year's gathering. So the opening, Portugal has this idea and its mythos and literature of Portugal being the source of the fifth empire, which will be a spiritual rebirth of humanity.
Mm.
The word empire is highly triggering to lots of people. So if you don't have the context and what it all means, it's very easy to just go on a reactionary, a reactionary reaction. And in the opening ceremony, the Fifth Empire thing, and I think some other things where I was were mentioned, and a bunch of people were triggered.
Mm.
And then during the gathering, I'm wandering around here, and I was in some quiet corner talking to friends, and there was this other gentleman there, and I started talking with him, and it's like, oh, how is it for you? Da da da, you know, somehow how was the opening ceremony? And clearly quite emotional. He was, oh, you don't want to know. I'm like, oh, okay, I really want to know now. Please tell me. You know, just tell me whatever you think. You know, it's and really quite emotionally said, you know, I was so triggered, I was so upset, I was packing up to leave. I really felt this is not my place. You know, how can this? He was quite upset. And I was like, wow, well, thank you for sharing. There's a group of people now that's working on organizing the closing ceremony. Would you like to contribute and participate in that? And he said, yes, yes. So I connected him with the people working on that and promptly forgot about the whole thing, you know, how it is running around with an event. He led the opening of the closing ceremony, did an amazing job having everybody moving. It was wonderful. And afterwards, he came to me almost in tears saying, I've never done anything like that. This was amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to me, this is exactly in a nutshell what the gathering is about, right? Come, participate. If you don't like it or if you can be done doing better, show us, right? Because this is also for me, it's this sense of creating a space where everybody feels agency to contribute, to change, to do things differently, to offer an alternative viewpoint or approach, because this is the society that I dream of.
I really love in that example that he really worked through what was going on inside of that.
Yeah.
He could have easily said, you know what, this is not for me. You know, and many of us do. If we're sitting online, we might just step away and just decide to say, turn our backs to something. And instead, he stayed and actually just stepped into something else, something new for himself as well as for the gathering. So, yeah, it's a nice example.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Because he was clearly like quite upset and emotional, and he was not just saying it. I could feel it in his emotions. He was halfway towards being out the door, but and I'm so lucky that I managed to talk to him and give him the invitation. It was this really beautiful closing.
Wow, I'm super excited for this, and yeah, also to bring in the elements as well of celebration. I think it's really like one of the strongest forms of resistance and also system change that we have. When I read that, you know, together on kind of like the principles of the gathering too, that really resonated. Because I know sometimes the work that we're doing feels heavy. It feels like it's like, yeah, sometimes swimming against the current, and the way that we can, I think, balance that out is just taking that moment to just enjoy, just to be free, to embody joy as well. And music is a really big part of that. So like I myself am, when I'm not at my startup, which we founded 5 years ago, we work in climate tech and carbon removal and soil regeneration with biochar. At the same time, I'm also facilitating singing circles and bringing music into that. I haven't quite yet led a biochar singing circle. I think that might still, but in any case, I'm working to kind of always bring those worlds together. So there isn't so big a boundary between what we do at work and how we show up in our personal lives. And as we said at the beginning, bringing the kids, I think is one way that they just step through those boundaries. But yeah, we really are excited as well to bring dear friends of ours that we've been able to connect with in Sri Lanka and other places in the world as musical artists to come and share their songs, which for us, it's music, it's song, it's wisdom as well, right? It's when you write a song, it comes from a certain place. And for each person, that might be very individual, but it often we're touching something that everyone can feel. When it comes from that place, it's just undeniable. And yeah, I'm really excited. So it'll be Sirianni Shana, who's coming. She's kind of world touring at the moment, but she's from the Hunniquin tribe in the Amazon. She's one of the youngest Indigenous wisdom keepers to be sharing the songs and also the message and the medicine from her tribe. So she'll be coming with Gabby, who works as her translator as well. And we had a chance to connect with them in Sri Lanka. We brought them in for the 1 month pop-up village that we had this year in January. She's incredibly remarkable. Only 21 herself, but has the wisdom of, I mean, like she's the grandmother, you know, kind of the mother and also the young person all in one, which is, I think, such a rare quality. And then we have our friend MJ as well, or Omjay, who's also a really blossoming songwriter. He'll come with his guitar, but also with a lot of his joy as well. And yeah, I hope that it'll be really well received to have music. I don't know how it's worked in previous years, if it's part of the program or it's otherwise spontaneous or maybe a mix of both.
So it's a mix of both, but each camp has its own program. So because this time we only have 3 camps, we'll have a central area with a board, and every camp will display its program so people can find what it is. I love what you said around music. It's really interesting how the role of music in society has changed, but it used to be normal that we sing as we work.
Mm,
People in the fields were usually singing as they were working, and they
mm,
were working together. And yeah, and for sure, going to what you said at the start, right? Yes, we are building a new world, a new reality, but I don't believe the world that I dream of is not one where we sacrifice ourselves with gritted teeth, but one which we're doing the good work whilst dancing and singing and laughing,
mm,
right? And it is possible, it doesn't diminish the gravity of our times, but it gives us energy and the ability to continue. Because in the end, we don't know what we can achieve in our lifetimes, right? We do what we do, but we can't guarantee the results. But it's celebration, dancing, joy, I think is an integral part of expressing gratitude
mm.
for this beautiful earth, for this reality, for our lives, right? And if we are not expressing gratitude, first of all, it will not make us happy human beings, which means we will not be successful. And
Yeah,
second of all, it's just kind of disrespectful to all of those amazing things which we have been given,
yeah,
right? I mean, we
couldn't
don't
agree
know. The
more.
future probably will be tougher in many ways. We should appreciate it. Uh, yeah,
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Victor. This is a really nice way to kick off the morning. And
thank you.
that's
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you in person in a month.
definitely, yeah. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.